welcome to Verbal and Nonverbal Messages. I'm Dr. Rick Merritt. We are going to get into the ways messages are presented to others. In this video, we'll discuss some of the aspects of verbal communication along with nonverbal communication. Let's get started with the verbal side of communication. When you visit nations such as Canada, Scotland, or Australia, you'll have little trouble communicating because we are all part of a language community. The English spoken in Australia is not quite the same as that in the United States. For example, I doubt many of us have had a Vegemite sandwich. If you have, let us know on the discussion board. You can bring it up in one of your responses. There are three characteristics of language. The first is language is arbitrary. Is this a dog or ein Hund? If you're an English-speaking community, it's a dog. If you're in a German-speaking community, it's ein Hund. The astute among you may have identified this as a whippet. And kudos to you for knowing the breed. But it's still a dog. Which of these animals are pets? The answer, of course, is all of them. This is an example how language is arbitrary. When I say I have to go home to feed my pet, it could mean any one of these and more. Finally, language changes over time. When I was in college, I would not have dreamed I would ever say the words, "I Googled myself today." Nor did I think I'd say tweeting, except in relation to birds. I never considered blogging as a career. And when I was in college, I never LOL'd. I did laugh, but I never LOL'd. And unfortunately, there are new words for the dark side as well, such as cybercrime and cyberbullying. When it comes to language and meaning, we need to discuss semantics, pragmatics, and sociolinguistics. Let's start with semantics. This is the meaning that you get from the way words are arranged in a sentence. For example, are the books due tomorrow? Is considered a question. In writing, it's easy to see because there's a question mark. When we say, we change the emphasis by raising our voice slightly on the last syllable of the last word. The sentence, "the books are due tomorrow," has no change in emphasis, which indicates that it is a statement. Next up are denotation and connotation. Denotation is the dictionary definition of the word. I like this picture because it's counterintuitive. If you are using a dictionary to look up dictionary, don't you know what dictionary means? Moving on to connotation. This is a bit more difficult. Connotations are meaning we would attach to a word. For example, a home could be considered a safe place by someone or a place of pain and sadness by someone else. It really depends on your personal experiences. Moving on to pragmatics, we go from what words mean to what people mean. When you say, "Would you give me a hand?" it's a question, so in theory, the receiver of the message has a choice, yes or no. However, as the picture illustrates, there's really no choice in the matter. This request is no different from "give me a hand" or "help me." We know from our experience with language and who is speaking what they mean. Pragmatics also change among speakers and among situations. Sociolinguistic meanings are based on cultural meaning of the language. For example, idioms in American English can be confusing for those not native speakers. Saying giving that speech was a piece of cake doesn't make sense to someone that's really not from our culture. Certain communication activities break cultural norms. For example, saying hi to someone passing by in China is frowned upon, where here in the United States it's simply being friendly. Finally, there's the direct versus the indirect verbal style. For example, if we need help studying for a test, we may ask someone if they're going to study for the math test today. We would do this with the hope they would ask us to join them. This is the indirect approach, by not directly expressing our desire to have a study partner. The direct approach would be, "Would you like to study for the test with me tonight?" This lets the person know exactly what you want. The indirect route is much more likely to have the intended meaning missed than the direct approach. That's verbal communication in a nutshell, and that's an idiom, by the way. Now let's move on to the nonverbal communication. So this next part's going to be really very quiet. That's a joke, in case you missed that. There are 4 characteristics to nonverbal communication. The first is that communication is inevitable and ever-changing. This is the concept that you cannot not communicate. I first heard this when I was a freshman in college. Yes, it's been around that long. We are always communicating via nonverbal communication. At one point, you may see a message that's a bit hard to discern, such as this message. Later, you may come back to it, and it's much clearer, simply because both you and the message have changed. Nonverbal communication is the primary conveyor of emotions. We can easily tell when someone is happy, sad, afraid, or other emotions. And we can very easily tell when someone is angry, even when they say they aren't. Nonverbal communication is multi-channeled. We use posture, eye contact, vocal pitch, and more to communicate our true feelings. When nonverbal conflicts with the message, the nonverbal is more likely to be believed. The 4th characteristic is nonverbal communication is ambiguous. Culture, gender, the context of the situation can all alter the meaning of nonverbal communication. Simply because someone has their arms folded may not mean they're shutting you out. It may mean the person is cold or even confident. It's good to know about nonverbal, but also take care when assigning meaning to nonverbal communication. Remember, communication will not mean the same thing every time, even with the same person. There are several types of nonverbal communication using the body. We'll start with gestures. We are probably most familiar with hand gestures. We know stop and pointing to something. However, we also know that the entire body can be used to gesture to someone. Next is eye contact. Someone staring at you, even from a video, can be somewhat disconcerting. Eye contact should be used at appropriate levels. As you can see, both of these people are using eye contact, but they are not really staring at each other. Now we have facial expressions. We briefly discussed this earlier. Smiling is one thing we easily recognize. One thing about smiles is they can actually be real or fake. Spotting a fake smile is pretty easy. Is the image on the left or the right the real smile? I'll give you a second. If you said the image on the right, you are correct. But why? You can see the slight wrinkles by the eyes in this smile. This happens when a smile is genuine. If a smile is fake, you will not see those lines. Posture is our next type of nonverbal communication. Posture is very important in public speaking. Simply from viewing this picture, you can probably say this is not an entertaining speech. The speaker doesn't appear to be interested, so why should I be interested? This picture shows an engaged speaker who is passionate about her topic and is giving a dynamic speech. Again, you can see this without hearing a word. You simply look at the posture. You should also notice a difference in eye contact. The final aspect of nonverbal communication is that of touch. We thrive on touch. As you can tell from this picture, we learn from touch at an early age and continue to communicate via touch throughout life. A gentle touch in a situation when someone needs comforting speaks volumes. We are moving on to the voice now. There are various aspects to using our voice. They include pitch, the highness or lowness of the voice, volume, the loudness or softness of the voice, the rate of speed at which the message is sent, the timbre or the unique quality of each voice, the intonation, and the vocalized pauses. An example that I recall pretty readily is when my stepmother would call me if I were in trouble. She would say, "Young Richard, come here!" You can tell by the tone of the voice, the volume, and the rate of that sentence that I was not going to get a few bucks spending money. Proxemics is the space we prefer in different situations. We tend to like more space when we're around strangers and allow our family and loved ones into our personal space. Notice the picture here and how some of the folks are spread out and others are using water bottles, paper cups, and papers to set up their territory. The next aspect is time. I live by the motto, if you are on time, you are late. I firmly believe those who are consistently late waste people's time. If you are in a meeting with 20 other people and are 5 minutes late, you have wasted 100 collective minutes. Over an hour and a half of time is wasted waiting on just one person. People do run late from time to time, pun intended, but being consistently late indicates to others that you believe you are more important than they are. Finally, we will look at physical appearance. This is how we look to others, from hairstyle to body art. In this picture, we may notice the body art, but what we really see is a sincerely happy and loving family. Physical appearance includes what we wear and generally how we present ourselves to others. This message from the woman is that she is a professional and dresses the part. This is, of course, her work persona. Her persona off-time probably would show a different physical appearance. There are several tips in your book on improving your nonverbal communication. Take some time to see how you can improve these vital communication skills. We'll discuss more about these concepts in our weekly discussion board. I'll see you there. I'm Dr. Rick Merritt.